Hello, everybody. This is Bennett Tchaikovsky, and welcome to the Accounting Professor. And today we're going to talk about what academic courses we should be taking to prepare for the CPA exam. So my disclaimer and copyright notice, the information and opinions in this presentation are those of myself and not my employers or affiliated organizations, including but not limited to Irvine Valley College and the South Orange County Community College District. This presentation is for educational purposes only and does not constitute any legal or accounting advice whatsoever. I will be previewing Becker and Rogers CPA during this overview. Any material preview belongs to those third parties. So why this video? So one of the things I do is that if you ever want to be a California CPA and you would like me to go through and review the courses you've gone through and have taken, I'm more than happy to do that. One of the things, though, is kind of a follow-up to that is, well, I've taken these courses. Now, what should I do? What courses should I take next? What do I need to do to prepare for the CPA exam? Just one other quick really note here. We're going through and talking about California educational requirements. California is very open. They kind of have the philosophy, which I kind of agree with, which is that the CPA exam is the final gatekeeper. Other states require some of these classes to be taken at an upper division level. So when watching the video, please make sure you understand the requirements in your particular state. So here are the contents of the presentation. We're going to look at what's on the exam, typical upper division courses and parts of the exam they cover, asynchronous, synchronous, what's that all about, problem-based or multiple choice questions, who is the teacher, what's their work experience. We're going to talk about some ways you can validate that. So when we look at the CPA exam, and I want to encourage you that, when you take these accounting courses, right, many of you want to become a CPA. To become a CPA, pass the exam, year of work experience, and meeting the educational requirement for your particular state. If I come over here and I look at the CPA exam, this is audit, starting for basically, this is basically the auditing section of the exam. There's FAR. This is the new FAR, which is financial accounting and reporting. There is regulation, which is essentially taxation. And then over here at UWorld, which is also another course, you have things such as BAR. And they want me to log in again. Just give me a moment. So you now have the other new parts of the CPA exam, such as BAR, right? So as we go through and look at all these different parts of the exam, what we want to kind of keep in mind is that as we go through, and this is CPA review, by the way, this is not CPA new, this is CPA review. So when we're going through and choosing classes, if we take classes that are in certain areas, this is going to help us better prepare for the CPA exam. The more I spend in the time I spend in the classroom, that should hopefully pay off for me when I'm going through and studying for the CPA exam. So keep it in mind that if you decide to take easy classes, you have to pay, you got to pay the devil. And that devil is going to get their due no matter what happens. So you're going to have to go through and put in the time, either through spending a lot of time on the CPA review or in the classrooms. But again, depending on the types of classes you're taking, it should basically be better for you. We'll go through and talk about this. So when I look at typical courses at any school, and this is just, I kind of made these up. There's definitely more classes, but you're going to start with financial accounting. And financial accounting is generally going to prepare you for FAR. right, which is financial accounting and reporting. By the way, the parts of the exam: FAR, financial accounting and reporting, auditing, regulation, reg, and then we've got beginning January 1st, 2024, you'll choose one of three: business analysis and reporting, or BAR, information systems and controls, and then tax compliance and planning. So when you look at courses, right, these courses here, I would say, are really kind of your basic blueprint for everything that's going to be on the CPA exam. Financial accounting is one that basically serves as the foundation for intermediate accounting, the full year. Managerial accounting, lower division class, is really going to help you on BAR when it goes through those cost accounting concepts. Intermediate accounting 1 and 2, this is really FAR, financial accounting and reporting, and business analysis and reporting. Advanced accounting, this will be really helping you with BAR. Auditing, financial statements, this is going to help you with audit. Individual and business taxation, that's going to help you out with regulation or tax compliance and planning. You could take a class on internal controls, which would help you out with ISC, which is information systems and controls. Accounting ethics, you'll kind of see this peppered throughout. And then lastly, you have cost accounting, which is really going to be part of BAR. So there are also other courses you can use to satisfy the educational requirement, at least in California. For an example, a course like QuickBooks, bookkeeping or general accounting, payroll taxation, spreadsheets. Although spreadsheets will help you because you can use Excel on the exam, and it is absolutely critical that you have good spreadsheet skills for your employers, it's not one of the core things in terms of basically what you need to know in terms of the actual material on the test. So again, when you're choosing courses, just kind of keep in mind that, well, if I don't take intermediate, then when it comes to actually preparing for the exam, it's going to take me a lot longer to kind of go through and do so. So these are the different classes, and a couple of things just to kind of point out here. So I had a student in the very first semester I taught accounting ethics in the fall of 2016. He did not take intermediate accounting, but he passed the CPA exam. And I thought that was awesome, but the student was actually already a lawyer, so he had actually passed the bar exam. But can you go through the CPA review materials and pass the exam? The answer is absolutely yes, without taking the particular course. Just remember that it's going to take you a lot longer to go through and do it. When I've had students who have come back to me, and I oftentimes will talk to them and I'll say, hey, when I taught you the full year of intermediate accounting, was there anything I didn't cover? He's like, nope, everything you covered was going to be on the exam. So and this is another kind of thing just to remind yourself as well. The more difficult your courses are is going to make your CPA exam preparation that much easier, right? So if you take challenging courses, it should make your CPA exam preparation easier. So let's talk now about how we take these different accounting classes. If you are working full-time, right, you're working 40 hours a week, taking an in-person class that meets during the day is probably not going to be good for you because you're not going to be able to get that time off of work. Remember, when we work 40 hours a week, plus we're going to be coming home, we got to take care of ourselves, we might have to take care of some family members, we have to go through and find time to go through and study. And it's one of those things where doing classes in person may be very, very difficult to do. Also, though, at the same time, though, is that you're probably going to get a better education if you're taking it in person because of that live interaction with the instructor. And you can't like leave the room to go do something else. And I would also say too, what's very important is the in-person testing. One of the things that I do when I'm teaching financial and managerial accounting, and why, like a lot of my students who watch the channel, they'd have to really be in the Irvine area to take my class, is because you have to come to IVC to take the tests. And that really, for a lot of students taking an online class, that makes it really, really tough. But it's the only way that I can essentially make sure that someone knows the material, because when they transfer, I don't want them to say that, oh, I don't, I don't know what's going on. Right. So another one you can do is online synchronous. In my opinion, this works better for more of upper division classes where you have professionals that are essentially coming in and they want to really kind of go through and understand, right? They're into it, they're watching it, they're engaged. That can really work depending upon the instructor and the way it's being done. Again, the testing will probably be online, but depending on the type of online testing someone has, it could be good. Online asynchronous, this is pre-recorded lectures, testing. It's going to be more time flexible. But again, what you really want to kind of keep in mind is that if you're taking an asynchronous course, you're going to have to be able to go through and really learn the material on your own, which can be very difficult for a class like intermediate accounting. I have, through my YouTube channel, my subscribers, I have many students that contact me. One viewer contacted me and they said, hey, Bennett, I'm taking an asynchronous intermediate accounting class. I have no idea what's going on. The teacher was unavailable. They were just using everything from the textbook and they didn't have an idea in terms of what was going on. I sent the materials and hopefully it worked out. But if you're taking intermediate accounting and there's no set time for lectures, I would be very careful about taking that class, or just kind of understanding that I'm not really going to learn anything, or I may learn something. But again, it's a tough one. That intermediate accounting, I would probably say, should be online synchronous. I would probably say the same thing for tax courses. Doing tax courses asynchronously online can be very, very difficult to do. And that's, again, feedback I've heard from my students. It can be a very tough thing to really go through and learn. So again, as you're looking at all these different options, figure out what's best for you. I teach accounting ethics. That class is online asynchronous. The material kind of lends itself to that. But again, it's really going to be for how you're going to go through and best learn. Now, here's the thing when it comes to when we're going through and talking about how am I going to be given exams? How am I going to be tested? When you look at FAR, or let's go over here to FAR, when we go through and we look at FAR, and I'll just come over here to one of the modules. On the CPA exam, you will have multiple choice questions, but you're also going to have task-based simulations, which I think are about 50% of the test score. Just again, don't quote me on that, but it's one of those things. So when you come over here and look at, say, this particular question where, like, oh, here's company purchases inventory during the year in 4 batches with unit and price amounts shown below. What's cost of goods sold and ending inventory, right? If you didn't take a class that emphasized a problem-based education, and you come into this class here, you come in to study, and you were only learning through multiple choice, that's what's going to make this very difficult, right? And I'll pause real quick and I'll kind of show you what I mean. So when I give my students, when I teach lower division financial accounting, what I will do is I'm going to be giving you questions that are going to be problem-based, meaning that It's not multiple choice. You have to go through and solve problems. Why do I do this? One, it creates an even playing field for everyone. And it's because I don't use a publisher's test bank to write my exams. I write my own tests. So it's putting everybody on the same even playing field. Two, I can give partial credit for incorrect answers, but you showed work, but you got the answer incorrectly. Three, it's going to give you by doing problems and solving problem-based questions, you're getting better ready for the real world. I have heard from multiple employers and recruiters that when they find out that their newly hired associates only had a multiple choice education, meaning that they didn't have to solve problems, meaning that they could find, if they had multiple choice questions that did not require them to show work, that's a huge issue, because if the students don't know what they're doing when they go into the workplace, that's a huge problem. So giving problem-based questions that the instructor is creating themselves, in my opinion, is the best way to go, because that way the students have to go through show work. They have to show that they've achieved partial mastery of the material, and they have to go through and practice. Accounting is a skill. The skill is learned by practice and repetition. If the students have gone through here and we then get to coming over here, when they get to the CPA exam, if they've had adequate preparation, taking this is going to be significantly easier, right? Because they're going to say, oh, I've had this before. I don't have to relearn it. So this is going to be a lot easier for me to go through and to do. When you're taking a course, it's not meant to necessarily be a CPA review. In fact, when I teach my intermediate or financial accounting, I do teach things and I talk about things that are not included on the CPA exam. But if you're taking accounting classes, and if the classes are easy, you don't really have to kind of show how you know the various different concepts, that's a problem. Because when you get to the CPA exam, it's going to be absolutely brutal, because you're going to be sitting there, I have no idea what's going on. And I've had videos where if you look at my channel, and I'll try to link this, is I'll say, oh, I took my classes online. I don't know what's going on. What do I do? And that's a very, very difficult kind of conversation to go through and have with different students. So let me pause real quick. Now, I don't want you to fear, like, look, if you ever want my lower division accounting homework packets, feel free to send me a message and I will send a few over to you, and you go through them. We'll talk more. I can send you more, right? So when you look at this, though, the importance of having problem-based questions, and the reason why I don't like using publishers' test banks is because pretty much every single question that is done by a publisher, the solution can be found online, and it gives students an unequal playing field. And I just don't like it at all. So again, and I also think the multiple choice questions on the CPA exam are very different than that of most of the publishers. So again, something just to kind of keep in mind. I will also share with you too, when I teach managerial accounting and I teach intermediate accounting, when I teach intermediate, the very first exam I give is essentially a review of 1A. If I give you a list of transactions, can you go through and prepare financial statements, right? And all I can say is when I have that situation, it doesn't turn up well. So again, just kind of keep that in the back of your mind. So last part over here, and there are some very good PhDs that teach accounting. However, I was taught by CPAs. I had an absolutely amazing undergraduate education, and it was because my instructors worked me And when I got to the CPA exam, I passed all 4 parts in one sitting. If you have a PhD that's teaching intermediate accounting and they're reading slides provided by a publisher, and I'm not saying all PhDs do this, but when a PhD is doing this, or if any instructor is doing that, CPAs do it too, by the way, what good does that really do me? I need to come in, when I come into the classroom, accounting is a practical science. I need to learn what I'm going through and doing. So when you're selecting an instructor, there's a couple things you want to kind of keep out for. Is the instructor a CPA? Why is that important? Because if they're teaching accounting, they should be a CPA. And the CPA is what you're aiming towards. So if they've taken the exam, they're going to basically know what you have to go through and focus on both professionally and for the exam. So that would be who I would choose to go through and take it with. Again, generalization, could have a PhD that's going to be an excellent instructor. Work experience. I have had, from before I started teaching, I have filed countless 10Ks, 10Qs, registration statements, been in front of the SEC. All I can tell you is, if I'm teaching you financial accounting, managerial, financial statement analysis, intermediate accounting, I've been through the ringer, right? So I'll be good at teaching you those courses. Now, I have taken like 7 tax courses in law school and 2 in undergraduate, but I never really practiced taxation. So I'm not going to be the best tax person for you. One of the instructors that we've hired at Irvine Valley, his name is Stephen Grinberg. He worked at the IRS for 30 years. He is going to be amazing at teaching individual or business taxation, because that's all he's been doing for the last 30 years. So, and he's also a CPA. So when you're looking at work experience, that can be really important. If you have someone who has only been in academia, they're basically reading from your book. That's your only experience. They haven't had a lot of things outside of that. One of the other places you can go through and look to is going to be Rate My Professors. When you go here, we'll go to one of my older ones. So over here, you basically have, this is obviously someone who took my class at another place, because I haven't taught there in a number of years, but Rate My Professors will basically help you decide, who should I be going through and taking for an accounting class? Am I actually going to learn something? Is it going to be difficult? How is it going to go through MB? This is extremely important in terms of when you're going through and figuring out what professor to take. Now, one of the problems is with Rate My Professors is typically what you get are extremes. If someone gets pissed off, this is where they lash out, or if they really like the instructor, this is where you'll either get one or the other. I tend to ask my students after they've taken my class to leave their honest feedback, because it can help me become a better instructor. Another thing too is, in terms of who is your instructor, how can I find out if someone is a CPA? If I go to the California Board of Accountancy and I want to see, is the person who I'm looking at, are they a CPA? I come right over here, California licensed CPA or accounting firm. I type in Tchaikovsky, and boom, here I am. You can see me, got my previous name on here, but you can see all my stuff up here, right? So I'm active, I'm clear. That's what you'll go through and see. So it's really important that you know, who are you taking this class with, right? who is my instructor? Because if you're taking a class from someone who is purely academic and you're taking a class like taxation and they've never filed a return, that's probably not a class that you're going to want to go through and take. Now, the last thing I'll go through and say is that when it comes to these different classes, like, so when it comes to the cool thing about Roger and Becker's CPA review, and you're going to want to use whichever one is best for you. Don't listen to me. You know, I had Roger live in person back in 1991, along with some other CPA review, other instructors, right? So I would just tell you, you want to choose whatever course is going to be best for you. So whether it be Roger, whether it be Becker, make sure you try it out to make sure it's right. And the thing is, whatever you don't learn in the classroom, they can teach you on the CPA review class. However, again, when you're in the classroom, if you're taking challenging courses, it essentially means that when it comes to this is going to feel more like a review than you're actually learning something new. And this exam is extremely difficult. It's very, very doable, but it takes a lot of time to prepare for. So if you've taken your classes and you've learned a lot from them, it's going to help you when you get here to start beginning to study for the CPA exam. It's going to hopefully make it a lot better. So hopefully, again, thank you for watching this video. If you have any comments or questions, please feel free to email me at 1812cpa@gmail.com. If you want me to take a look at your classes, what you've taken for California, feel free to email me there as well. Thank you for watching and for liking and subscribing to my content. And I'm sure you're watching this on at least 1.75 speed. I look forward to seeing you on future videos. Have a great day.